Hi, this is McDade with Goddess Elite. I'm here to bring you a small deck, but nonetheless a pretty nice deck if you were looking at doing some work at maybe working with some things in your life that might need some, or somebody else's life if you're reading for somebody. I get the feeling that though that this deck is more about working personal growth and personal road. It's called the Oddity Tarot. It is just a deck that contains the major arcana. It's got an extra card thrown in there. I think one of the cards is kind of split, and I guess that's why it has 23 cards instead of 22. But it's interesting because the imagery is very stark. It's very much in your face. And there's always this dualistic kind of a representation that things are not quite what they seem. And I think a lot of times in life, not everything that we look at on the surface is quite what we see when we look a little deeper. Okay, we're going to go through these cards, and I think you're going to get this idea. In the traditional Fool, it's this imagery of somebody walking off a cliff with a little dog and being trusting and everything. In this one, we have a hand reaching for a crystal. Oh, that's set within a bear trap. So you take a chance that if you go to reach for something that's really beautiful, sometimes you can overstep your bounds and lose your hand. Interesting kind of a card. The next two cards go together. We have the Magician, who is pulling the head out of a hat. That's a head out of a hat, right? Okay. You need to see the next card to really understand this card, because this card derives some of its meaning from the next card. So, without any further ado, we present the Magician next to the High Priestess. As you can see, she's lost her head, and he's pulling it out of a hat. So, something to meditate on and think about as far as manipulation and where it can get you, and sometimes how spirituality can be shifty. Sometimes those deep, dark secrets that you look for are, I would say better left alone. You have to spill your blood to get to them. And we have the Empress. These are both weird, very weird cards. The Empress, and this idea of the Empress is usually indicative of pregnancy or being full of possibilities of bringing something new into the world, and we've got eggs in their hair, which is odd in itself, but being the Oddity Tarot, yeah, I think that probably resonates. This card, I'm not quite sure what to tell you about this one. All I can tell you is it's the Emperor. I have no idea what's going on with his head. The only thing, the imagery that spoke to me was picking someone's brain, which that kind of is vaguely reminiscent of, and obviously smart because he's wearing glasses. Ha! I couldn't resist that. Sorry. Temperance to me in this deck makes a lot of sense. I like this card for temperance, balance. The Lovers kind of makes a lot of sense too. Chariot. Instead of having two horses or other animals pulling it, it's a pair of crystals being stood on. The energy of a pair of crystals and having them pull one along. Strength. In the reflection, we don't see the dagger. You see the dagger behind her. So it's kind of like reality and reflection, this idea that this one, we see crystals, and we see this solitary, it's the hermit, solitary spheres that seem to contain the Tetragrammaton's cube, or Solomon's seal, variations on sacred geometry. And again, you see that same imagery in the Wheel of Fortune. Justice is a little on the weird side too. We have crystals on one side and organs that give life on the other. Somebody had a great imagination drawing this one up. Hanged Man. Death. There's always this idea of dripping blood in almost all these cards. Don't ask me. The crystals being right, growing out of the eyes and the sockets and the top of the skull are all indicative of life and energy, the energy that continues after death, after shedding one's skin. Temperance, I'm going to leave this one up to you to decipher. Same thing with the Devil. You've got this nut inside one eye socket. I think that's very, very good symbolism. A tower made out of teeth. And we have another tooth in an ocean, and an archer shooting at more of those sacred geometry figures and getting energy from them. The moon. The sun. Judgment. I think the Judgment card is really good. I like this card. It's a dark mirror. Implies scrying. Looking at oneself. Examining oneself. Under one's own, criticism. Critical eye. And seeing the truth in one's actions and the consequences of one's actions. I like this card. We have the World. Have Everything. Another weird, very weird card. And the last card, well, I guess that is the last card. That card, Everything, and nothing. It's like this split. The artist took liberties, the designer took liberties to split this card down the middle, the universe. Everything or nothing. Which, some people are very much like that. So, I've no doubt that if you worked with this set of cards. Its imagery is very stark. It's very, very bold. It's very colorful, and some of it is a little on the, I don't want to say risque side, but some of it is on the, I don't want to say, what do I want to say? So some of the energy in this deck is very, very hard to deal with. Put it that way. Which is sometimes how, when working with the reality that is one's life, it can be hard to look at and deal with. And for that reason, I think that this deck would really make a really good self-diagnostic kind of a tool in looking at those things one needs to work with. So if you're looking for something along those lines, I think that you couldn't go wrong going with the Oddity Tarot. It's definitely odd. It's not a full deck. Hey, sometimes we play without a full deck. Ha! But sometimes that can be good. Sometimes you don't need a full deck of cards to get you a really good, to give you a really good diagnostic tool. One can argue that all of the other suit cards are wrapped up in the major arcana anyway. And reading with the major arcana gives you a very broad picture, but can also challenge one to see and dig out some great truths about oneself. Good things and bad. So, the Oddity Tarot. Give it a try. And thanks for sitting in with me. Megan McDade with Goddess and Lady. Bye-bye.